Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage in the beautiful state of Maine. The sun's out today. It's Monday, midday. I had an hour or so to spare, and I was either going to do a technical video about a couple subjects that have been cooking upstairs, or just a shop update, which is usually more widespread, lighthearted, and more fun. So let's do that. In the past week, I was approached by a nice guy out of North Carolina who watched an old Hurst shifter video that I did back when I first started my channel, and he wanted a set of the aluminum rods that I make with the rod ends and the shift arms and everything. We communicated what kind of shifter he has. Back when I was doing that, I spent a whole winter kind of engrossed in building shifters. It was a blast. And I kind of moved on to other things, and I have a cabinet over there, I'll even show it to you, that's full of shifters and parts and raw materials. And fortunately, I took notes because I knew exactly the shifter he had. I have the exact shifter here. And I say quickly, but the whole process, including packaging and taking it to the post office, I still probably spent 5 hours doing it. So it's fun though. I hadn't done it in a while. The drilling and tapping of holes, I remembered my trick, so I drill a hole on the lathe to thread for the rod ends, the right and left hand, and if my 21/64 drill bit is sharp and I crank the handle at the right speed, the chips that come out of each flute are one piece, and I drill in 2 inches. So it's impressive to watch, and most often things don't go wrong. Just don't grab the chip while the machine's running. Here's the cabinet, all customized, of course. I bought it from a friend who was having a barn sale. And I filled it up with raw material and shifter pieces. 5/8 6061 for the rods. Lots of bigger material. I make T-handles and etc. And lots of shifters. Some I've refurbished. Some are waiting to be refurbished. And the brackets. It's fun. Once you've got it all mapped out, I got some well-written plans and all the right length nuts and bolts. It's kind of fun. But shifter parts are not inexpensive. I spent most of last week working on the 505 cubic inch big block Chevy that I traded for the 56 Chevy 210 Handyman wagon. When I get enough parts in this week, I believe the push rods will be here and a few other trinkets, I'm hoping that motor is going to leave. Speaking of the 56, I have been collecting parts, and Friday night I came back out here after dark. It gets dark later these days, 7 or 8 o'clock. Not that I'm afraid of the dark, it's just usually by then I'm relaxing. And I had stuck all those pieces together to make a dummy small block, and I tried it in the engine bay. I had already gathered a box full of engine mount pieces that I was potentially going to make mounts out of. And I determined, I knew this going in just by watching videos, that the engine compartment is pretty tight and the firewall is recessed. And in stock form, the engine has front brackets and little biscuits, so you're not going down over a mount. A lot of the semi bolt-on mount kits that they cite are retrofit to side mounts on the block for a small or big block Chevy. They end up sticking up off the frame. It's a tower, it's about that long, and that's not going to make getting the engine in and out any faster. And I went ahead and bolted traditional couple poly mounts on the side of the block, and quickly determined anything I built was probably going to look a lot like that. So I changed my plans. That's what you got to do. You got to flow with it. So I decided I wanted to use a lot of street rods, use a flathead Ford type biscuit, 2 pieces, nut and a bolt, a couple washes, and you make mounts and brackets to cover that. So I started shopping just for the biscuit. The cheapest I found them, I think, was Speedway for $25 or $29, but to get free shipping, you got to spend a couple $100. Not a problem when you have a Tri-5 Chevy, because there's a lot of stuff I needed, or do need, and will continue to need. However, I was shopping for the biscuits on eBay, and I found one left of a mount kit that uses that biscuit for a smaller big block in a Tri-5. And it was 79 bucks. Excuse me, 76 bucks. So I couldn't say no. I, wanted to use raw material I had, but I'm going to spend much more than $76 building my own. If you think about my time, whatever, in a weak moment, I'm still mad at myself for buying them. However, I hope they at least fit. But the beauty of that style mount is the engine just goes in and sits on them. You don't have to go down or up over anything to get the motor in and out. So when I build stuff, regardless of what it is, and even if it's not the easiest way to do it, I'm not going to make something on purpose anyway that I'm going to hate in the future. So let's hope they work out. They've been shipped and they're on their way, along with a set of headers. I believe I told you I found a set of 3/4 length stainless headers, Chinese headers for $130, $128, whatever it was. So let's see how those look too. One of the first things I did days after I got the car is I went through the totes and coffee cans of parts that came with it. And mentally, I discovered some things I was going to need and was glad I had. You don't really know when you're not that familiar with the product. I mean, I've never built a Tri-5 Chevy, but all the things you're actually missing. So I made a second pass through there yesterday and determined, separate categories. You got powertrain, which is not a problem for me to come up with stuff, but the rear tailgate, the window goes up and the gate goes down. How does that saying go? I'm not sure I'll ever financially recover from buying all those parts. Just the handle is like $290. I think I'm fortunate that the reels and cables that are in the quarter panels that actually help you lower and raise the gate are still there, and somebody put wire on them to keep them from going up inside the quarter panels. I can see they're in place, and I hope they work. I've watched videos on how to change them, but I'm still missing parts to do that. I don't have any of the mechanism inside the door. I'm missing a lot of tailgate pieces. I don't have the struts that hold the window up, anything to hold the glass in and all that stuff. That's just the tailgate on that. It's going to be a problem. In the future, soon, I'm going to lay out all the trim pieces I have for the external part of the body to see where I'm at. I have doubts that I have everything I need. There seems to be parts from about 3 cars there, and the 3 totes add up to about 400 pounds. It's hard to believe that car's missing that many parts. But I'm concentrating on the drivetrain mock-up first on the 56, and I had already gone ahead and now have received my Z-bar or cross shaft, whatever you want to call it, for the clutch. I've mentioned in the past I am not a hydraulic clutch guy, even though it's always the somewhat easier way to go. I am a mechanical linkage guy and will stay that way. I just like the feel of them. Looking at this, like the big hole, I haven't quite figured out what goes in there. I don't have any parts breakdown or anything yet. Nor will I probably follow it. I'll probably use the same material that I make my shifter rods out of and make myself an upper and a lower rod with rod ends. Why not? I got all the stuff. I did find a relatively good deal on a clutch fork. Came with a boot, the stud, and a throw-up bearing for 60 bucks. That's pretty good. It was on eBay. LOSTAR. It's not Lone Star, Losta, whatever, Chinese. I take this style clutch fork, and I'm going to cut it right here to accept a clevis and a rod end instead of the ball. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I probably won't use it. But we'll see. I do have a brand new adjuster, and it does have the hole for the spring to keep these two together. Did you know there's not only a return spring, there's a spring that connects these two together so they don't jump out. The rod can't jump out. So. And I've mentioned it many times, but I'm going to mention it as many times as possible now until the end of time, that when you put your throw-up bearing on the fork, it does not go between these pieces. The groove goes over these pieces. You should not see these pieces when you look in the bell housing. It seems like everyone I look at, somebody's put the throwout bearing under the tang, and the groove is down here. And what that does is about halfway through its travel, it's going to bind up on the bearing retainer on the transmission and make a click every time. Eventually wear out the bearing retainer, break the clips. I mean, it's wrong. That's right. I've shown this a few times. Now I've shown it again. I just heard the mail truck go by. Maybe I have more bushings, but I had ordered all the bushings. I'd mentioned that before. And I also mentioned I was torn between investing another almost $300 in a kit, because you know how kits are, to relocate the rear springs. I was watching an old Tri-5, propaganda video that Chevrolet put out back in the 55 or 56. 55, I believe, bragging about their outboard leaf springs and how it was the whole wide track thing. They had a fancy name for everything. Smooth-O-Matic, Motortronic. They had, you name it. You watch the old commercials, they're a hoot because they had a name for everything. But as luck would have it, I'm having a conversation with my buddy who I traded the engine to get the car. And he'd already bought the kit. He had forgotten about it. It was under his bench. We did some more trading, and now I have a brand new kit. It comes with the rear shackles and now duplicate bushings. It comes with poly bushings for the shackles, even though I just bought some. So that project's going to happen. It will have the springs move inboard, and when we first looked over the car, if you want to go back, I'll show it again in the future, but there are those two little squares that have been welded in that I didn't think were a rust patch, but they might have been. But if I was to move that tub that far inside, and it's a wagon, there's nothing in your way. It's not like you're working inside a trunk. You could put a 14-inch tire under the back of that. So, as usual, mission creep, and things get out of hand. So that's the way my brain works. Once I get a project and I study it a little bit, compartmentalized, I start with the big things I need to do the big jobs, like I'm going to mock up the powertrain, and then slowly work downward to all the minute details that I don't even know I need yet, because lots of parts are going to rear their ugly head. When you look at a car that's fully restored, you hope it came apart as a 100% car and all the pieces were there, inventoried, put in bags, put back together. This is not that. Nothing. Everything that's there is just thrown in a box, and again, it looks like multiple cars. Who knows? The thing was in storage for a long time. Taken apart probably a long time ago, but I don't even know the details about that. So let's move on from the 56. It'll be an ongoing project. So I love tools. That's no secret. Saturday night, I'm on good old Marketplace, and 2 towns over, there's what appears to be a pretty big vise. It's mounted on a truck wheel, has a big column, and the vise itself. I'm there the next morning at 9 o'clock. Super nice guy. As soon as I pull in, the first words out of my mouth as he's walking down his driveway is, "We should be best friends," because our yards look a lot alike. Actually, he had more stuff than I did. Different stuff anyway. So we made a deal on the vise. He had a loader with a grapple on it, which was really handy. He just squeezed it and put the big vise right in my truck. I'll show you the vise before we're done. And we're standing there shooting the breeze. He had bought a whole contents of somebody's garage. And turns out he cuts trees for a living, which will come in handy. This is what happens. You make new friends. I didn't know I was going to make a new friend yesterday morning, but here I am and a potential guy I could hire because I got 3 or 4 trees that I'm not real comfortable even being around when they come down. But they need to come down in the near future. So he's a tree cutter, and I'm staring at a stump, and it's covered with all these knickknacks that he collects from trees that are going to ruin his saw. He doesn't know that I love owls, but I reach over and pick this owl because this just made me happy, especially when he said, "I want you to have that." My new best friend. I don't even know his name. I have his card, but I haven't read it. And here it is in all its bulging glory. Somebody I assume they stick well with it, but hey, it looks pretty good. I'm going to clean it up and paint it. The only thing wrong with it is the jaws are present and the screw holes are all there, but there's no screws to hold the jaws in. When staring at the pictures, the vise looked a little bit bigger. I was comparing it to the size of the wheel. It's probably a 24.5 wheel or a 22.5. I haven't measured it. But it's just, it's an average vise, I guess. But it looks big and cumbersome, but it actually moves around pretty handy. And I was looking for something a little more portable. Sometimes you want to drag it outside without bringing the bench with you. I also couldn't leave without this magnetic wheeled sweeper. I made a deal with my son. For every nail that he finds or screw, I'll give him a nickel. To date, I owe him about $10,000. Now he's going to bankrupt me. So that's going to do it for this sometimes weekly, often neglected, sometimes missed video vlog, shop update, whatever you want to call it. I'm just glad you made it this far in the video. If you did, thank you. I can't help but think in the back of my mind how it kills me that the 56 wagon, my 49 Chevrolet pickup projects, they were taken apart at one point and parts were lost or misplaced. The doors are missing off my 49 cab. I know that they were misplaced. I was told the story. They're here in Maine somewhere. I'll probably never see them. I found a set of doors in the junkyard. I had to buy patch panels for them. They'll be okay, but the doors that are on that cab, if they're as nice as the cab, would have been a lot better. The 56 wagon, the bumpers are somewhere, all the hardware I'm missing. Even if it's not usable, I'd still have the option to do something with it, even resell it eventually. But I guess that's where all those swap meet parts come from. I'm looking at my 72 Nova up on the left. That missing a lot of parts. It was taken apart for a long time. Things get misplaced. But I guess that's why they came here. The abandoned vehicles come here to spend the rest of their days. Hope you had a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.